Thanks for joining us. I'm Gabe Garish, owner of Backwoods Pursuit, and today I'm going to show you how I put together my DIY bow shop setup. Now, my DIY bow shop build has come a long ways from where it was a couple of years ago. You may have seen a video I did about when I started this project, and it didn't have a lot of the finishes that it does now. And I've added a lot of new equipment that makes working on your bow a whole lot easier. So stick around that. So if you're building your own DIY garage bow shop, this video should be helpful for you, hopefully, and I'll show you some of the things in the tips and tricks that I've used, some of the stuff that I've built even to make this just an awesome place to work on your bow. As always, we really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button for us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website, backwoodspursuit.com. We got a ton of other gear reviews over there, a ton of great content. Go check that out. Links to that down in the description, as well as a link to everything that I'm going to be showing you here in the video. So if anything looks like something you want to add to your shop, go ahead and check that out. Let's get started. All right, to start, let's look at the construction. Basically, what I did is I wanted a height that was really comfortable to work at so you're not bending over. So I did 40 inches, and then of course you add the half inch here for the piece of wood on top here. So about 41 inches as far as the height. The depth I did 24 inches. And the reason I did that, just to make it simple as far as cost effective when basically buying a 4x8 sheet, just cut that right in half and you are good to go. Could do a little bit deeper. It would be useful in some situations, but of course takes up more room if you do that as well. And it made it real cost effective to build a nice large work area without having to buy extra lumber. Next thing I did here is I added a layer of pegboard basically to cover the entire wall of my garage here. The reason I wanted to do that is not only does it look real nice, it makes organization super easy. I've got all my tools here organized, readily available, so it's just there to grab real easily. I'm kind of a little OCD that way as far as having things organized, so really nice that way, so it makes everything look real nice and easily available and accessible when you're working on your bow. Now, as far as the construction on the underneath side of this, basically all I did is just frame that in like you would a pretty basic framing job, and just did 24 inches there as far as depth. Real simple and basic that way. It worked really well. Now, another thing I did is I added a couple more 100-watt bulbs up in the ceiling. I went and jumped up in the attic and hardwired those in, and I also painted the ceiling white. It makes a huge difference in reflecting more light, giving you more light to work with when you're working on your bow, because you obviously need a lot of light when you're working on your bow. So it really was helpful. Particularly painting that white made a massive difference. So I highly recommend doing that. Now, last thing I did is I went ahead and painted the workbench here. Coat of primer, a couple coats of latex satin paint, and then put some lacquer over the top of it to give it that nice hard shell, make it easy to clean and more durable as well. All right, now we've gone over some of the basics of how I built this. Let's look at some of the tools that I've got here and the things that have made working on my bow a whole lot easier, particularly a lot of the stuff that I've upgraded since the last video. And we're going to go through all this stuff for you to help you get dialed in for your own bow shop. All right, let's jump into some of the tools here. I'm going to go over all the tools that I've got for my garage bow shop here. Starting on this end of the workbench, I've got my bow vise here. This is the OMP Micro Tune Versa, and it's the wide limb. So it's just a super nice bow vise. You've got just, if you've seen these out in the bow shop or whatnot, real nice 360-degree ball head. So it just makes working on your bow, leveling that up super easy. I've got a video on this versus the one that I used to have, which is one of those American Archery products, those yellow ones, and it works well also, but I recently upgraded to this and it's a huge upgrade. I'll put a link up there for you so you can check out the differences, figure out which one is going to work best for you, but recently went to this one and it is awesome. Sure makes working on your bow a whole lot easier. Next, also on this end of the bench, I've got a set of the October Mountain Products Allen wrenches here. These are super useful. Not only I like them here in this kind of the center because I use it with the vise all the time, as well as down on that end with the press and that sort of thing. So they're kind of right in the middle. I do like to leave it detached. You can mount it to the wall or mount it to the bench. I like to leave it detached in case you need to move it or whatnot, but these are real nice. You've got the L shape there, so you've got multiple sides you can use on those Allen wrenches. Really nice there. Next, I've got my little bow holder here, and I made this, and I'll put a card in a video right up there for you to show you how I made this. It's real easy to do. It's very useful, especially if you don't have a real nice press like the Last Chance Archery or something like that. This is really, really useful if you're using a cable style press, but I just keep that right underneath the bench here, out of the way, but something that is nice even if you're using it to tie in a D-loop or a peep or something like that. You can of course use the vise, but this is also useful as well. Now right up above me here, I've got my bow scale. Now this is chained, as you can see, up to the, it's anchored into the stud up in the ceiling, so make sure that that's not going to come out on me. Now I prefer actually to test my draw weight using my draw board, and when I'm doing that, I have got this one right here available and ready for that. So let me grab the draw board here and I'll show you how that is set up here on my workbench. Another critical tool that is absolutely worth building if you can is a draw board. I've got another video up here on how I built this draw board. It's really easy to do, but man, it sure makes tuning your bow so much easier. You can measure your draw length, make sure that is correct. Grab my scale here and measure the draw weight. Attach that right here to my crank, and that's going to make getting your exact draw weight even easier. So I leave that one available there. You can check your cam timing, so a lot you can do with the draw board that's absolutely worth doing if you can. Real easy and simple to make as well, and not that expensive. Now moving down to this end of the workbench, I've got my Last Chance Archery press. If you can manage to snag one of these are so awesome, and they make those fine-tune adjustments so much easier, but they are expensive, so unless you're going to do a fair amount of work on your bow, then I can understand not grabbing one of these. But if you got room for them and the ability to, they are super nice. I've got this kind of in this corner, so it's out of the way as much as possible. I've got that whole workspace over there to work on, using the draw board or the vise, that little bow holder, that sort of thing. So this is nice and out of the way. So now let's look at all the little tools right there I've got hanging up on the wall. I'm gonna go through what I've got there and how I set that up to make it as easy as possible to work on the bow. All right, over in this corner here, I've kind of got all the tools and the things that I use on a fairly regular basis when I'm working on my bow to make them easily accessible and just make it real easy to get done what you need to. Just your basic screwdrivers here, glue for fletchings, inserts, that sort of thing, extra Allen sets, some of the specialty sizes, that sort of thing, extra levels, inserts, knives, all that good stuff. And then I've got here in my little containers just fletchings, different kinds of nocks, Q-tips, all that good stuff, just kind of labeled appropriately for whatever is going to work best in your setup. But I got a number of things in there, D-loop string and whatnot. Got a little acetone here and some denatured alcohol as well. And then up on the board here, of course, we got some epoxy for some of those, depending on what kind of insert you're putting in. Sometimes I use that. Got some serving available, some more Allen wrenches if I want to grab those for, say, working in down at the range, if I'm going to be doing some tuning down at the range, that sort of thing. Also got a scale to measure your arrows to get you an exact weights when you're dialing in your system that way. It's really useful. Up over here is when I'm an arrow squaring tool. I use this, of course, to when I'm building arrows to make sure I got the ends squared up. So up over here, I've got my bow square, so I'm setting my nock point. I got that available easily right there. Got a couple of different releases, the ones I like to use on a regular basis. A couple different fletching jigs over here that are here, and the reason I like it up off of the workbench, it just keeps things from being cluttered. Makes them real easy to grab and use whenever I want. This is the AAE Blazer fletching, the mini fletching jig there, and then the one I use probably the most here is the Bitzenberger, and with the right helical. That's the one I currently am using with my day 6 arrows, so I'd leave that there and out of the way. Got some extra pieces for the press here, and just my extra stabilizer, the back bar there. Just a number of different things here that are super useful to have easily available and ready for your use whenever you need to get started working on your bow. Now, as you can see, I've got my bows hung up there with a pegboard. That's really nice. I like having them up and out of the way, easy to grab again. Makes it real nice and clean in storing them. Now, a couple more individual things I'd recommend having here that I keep in the little compartments here. This is the OMP freehand bow leveling kit, one for the string, one for the arrow. It's really nice and especially works well with the Reversa cradle vise, a micro tune there to make sure that your bow is level when you're setting up your sight, setting up your rest, all that sort of thing. You want to have some lighters, or at least one lighter around. Keep that in here, of course. You got to have that, and you got some string wax. Anything that is going to be used frequently, I keep right there. I also cut off and made, basically just cut off a carpenter level and made that, so I basically rubber band that to the side of my riser when I'm setting my second and third axis on my sight. That's really useful for that as well. That's one of my little homemade deals that I came up with. Another tool that I would highly recommend picking up is a arrow spinner. I think this is the Pine Ridge version, and basically just something that when you're building your arrows, you can spin test it, make sure that your arrow is spinning true. That's one very inexpensive thing that is worth having. Now, I also built this spine indexing tool. Not something I use all that often, but sometimes when I get a new set of arrows or I'm trying a new set, basically you got my weight here and stick that over the shaft of the arrow and then put that weight on there and just test basically if there's how much variance there is from one arrow to the next and make sure they're spinning real good. Anyways, there's a whole process to going about that we're not going to get into, but again, just something that I built that I don't use that often, but it's kind of nice to have around also. One last thing I built here is just a paper tuning setup. This is just made out of PVC. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it works really well. Obviously, when you're getting your bow set up and you are getting all tuned up, having the ability just to grab that and shoot through paper and get you started on your tuning process, really nice and easy. This setup is really basically just some pieces of PVC, a crossbar here to hold your paper, another one here to kind of run that over the top, and just some clamps up here on top, as well as just some corners. It wasn't obviously very expensive to make, super simple, but absolutely gets the job done. There's a lot of ways you can set up for getting yourself set up for paper tuning, but this is just one I store up out of the way and pull it out when I need it once in a while. So there you go. That is my DIY garage bow shop setup. Got most of the bases covered here, but if I missed anything, I'd love to hear it. Drop that down in the comments section. Let me know if you think I can make any improvements as well. But this really turned out to be a real nice workspace to tinker with my bow, which I love doing, obviously, or I wouldn't have set this all up. So drop any comments, questions down there. Help you out if we can, get you set up for your own garage DIY bow shop. Thanks for watching here today. We'll see you next time.